So we'll just dive right in. You guys remember me from Module 2. I'm really honored to be invited back to speak with you guys again. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. So I'm going to talk about the essential ingredients to any good advocacy pitch. And Aaron sort of previewed this for me, bottom line up front. That is, if your audience were to only hear the first 30 seconds of your message, they would still come away with the heart of what your ask is. So to make sure that you get the bottom line up front, we want to anchor our message around 3 core elements. So we're going to talk about the first core element now, which is who, as in, who are you? So I'm going to give you examples of 5 identities that you could use as part of your who, and these can be mixed and matched based on the situation to give you the strongest presentation. So first off, you're probably not going it alone. For any given issue, there's a coalition of support or opposition. So you should align yourself with big groups that maybe you're a paying member of, or if you're not a member, you might just agree with them. And that gives you the power of strength in numbers. So here's an example. I could say for me, hi, we are graduate students from Johns Hopkins, an R1 institution that trains over 20,000 early career scientists. We stand together with the Clean Air Coalition in our belief that, right? So the coalitions here are Hopkins with its 20,000 graduate students, and the Clean Air Coalition, which is a prominent lobbying group for clean air, power in numbers, right? Secondly, you're a resident of somewhere. If you're a constituent, even better, of course. So here's what that would look like for the same scenario with me. Hi, we're grad students from Hopkins who live and work in the city of Baltimore, part of the 7th Congressional District for the past 6 years. This is nice because it works for non-citizens too. Decision makers do care about the lived experience of folks in their zip codes, even the ones that don't vote, right? Okay, the third one is you might be an ambassador, someone speaking on behalf of a coalition or on behalf of the people at home. They're not there in the room with the decision maker, but you are. And your story and your voice is just one example of the broader coalition. This is especially true if you have an elected position, right? You're president of a group, or you're representing, some grassroots advocacy organization. So for example, I might have been able to say, hi, we're grad students from Hopkins. As vice president of Johns Hopkins Science Policy Group, I represent the interests of 20,000 early career scientists in Baltimore, et cetera, right? It also might be relevant to talk about any various personal identities that you have to the extent that it's relevant or to the extent that you're comfortable. This might include things like gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, immigration status. Perhaps it's your relationship to someone else, a spouse, a child, a sibling, a friend, that is very impacted by the policy at hand. So for example, when I'm advocating about racial equity, I might say, hi, I'm Chanel, a 5th-year graduate student at Hopkins. I am one of 3 Black women in my program, and to my knowledge, the only queer identifying Black woman in my program. Therefore, I believe, right? And certainly as scientists, we are the experts. Decision makers and their staff are skilled generalists, but you are the issue area specialist, as Bernat mentioned. So don't be afraid to leverage that to give your message authority and credibility. So for example, when I've advocated for bills related to traumatic brain injury on the Hill, and I'm with a small group, I might have said, hi, I'm Chanel, a practicing neuroscientist for over 10 years. Collectively, my colleagues here and I have co-authored over 20 research articles in neuroscience, which is why we believe that It doesn't matter that you're like the 4th or 5th co-author in the list. If your name is on the paper, claim it. It doesn't matter that, oh, I was only an undergrad or I was only a tech. That research is valid, so count it. So that's the who, right? First ingredient. What's next? The why. Why are you here? I'm going to talk about 3 examples of the why, although I'm sure you could come up with several more. Perhaps you're there for the government to advocate for a specific mission or milestone, right? So for example, California put forth a goal for the state to be carbon neutral by the year 2045. So anytime an advocate is pushing for reduced carbon emissions, more electric cars, more bike paths, more walking trails, this is transportation, so that's why I'm talking about it, they reference this climate change goal. And it's very powerful because it's a state goal. So you're just saying, hey, I'm agreeing with a mandate the state has already put in place. Don't get in the way of this legislative intent. So that can be very powerful. but perhaps you're advocating for something that's less quantitative and more abstract. There's not a fixed number or a fixed year. It's a vision, but you can speak to that as well. So for example, when I advocate for racial equity in STEM, I might evoke a vision where students of color are receiving training in an inclusive and psychologically safe environment with faculty that are committed to anti-racist action, right? So evoking the vision is where you talk about what a better future would look like for you. And finally, as Bernat so eloquently shared before, you can speak to shared values. This is really helpful if you're advocating to a decision maker that doesn't necessarily agree with you on the issues. So while you may not see eye to eye on a specific point, most certainly you will have some shared values and you can focus on that, right? So if I'm advocating for research funding, I may say, hey, as scientists, we believe in the power of research to keep America healthy. And we believe in the power of innovation to keep America at the forefront of technological breakthroughs, which improve all aspects of life. As such, we ask you to fund the NIH or whatever. So it's these big, lofty, values, words that really sort of hit home for decision makers. Okay, so that's the why. Why are you here? And then finally, the what. What is your ask? What do you want them to do, right? Very often we think, well, I want them to vote a certain way. Vote yay or nay on measure whatever. Senator Matney, well, I mean, it's an imaginary scenario, so it might as well be Senator Matney. Yeah. Senator Matney, we respectfully ask you to vote aye on measure X. And that's sort of, at least in California, like a little, a commonly heard phrase we'll hear from advocates. There's a certain, ring to it. But what we, I think, tend to forget as advocates is that the legislature also has the power of the purse. They can pull money into programs. Ask your decision maker to support your issue in the budget. This is so critical. Every budget cycle, government programs are up for evaluation, whether to receive more money or less money or stay the same. This process, honestly, is pretty opaque and not very straightforward. So a lot of people don't necessarily know to go here, but trust and believe, advocacy definitely matters when you're talking about money. So make sure that your favorite program doesn't get gutted, or that if there's lots of money to spare, perhaps your favorite program can see a windfall. Ask your decision maker to support your issue in the budget, right? You can ask the decision maker to advocate. Yes, advocates can ask decision makers to advocate for you using the power of their bully pulpit, because they give speeches all the time, right? Perhaps you want them to give a speech on your campus or in your city. Perhaps you have a really compelling personal story and you want them to take your story and repeat it on the campaign trail. This is an opportunity for you to get the decision maker to take your words, your talking points, and get it to come out of their mouth, right? That's a very powerful ask as well. And then finally, perhaps you want them to visit. Decision makers love a photo opportunity. Scientific labs look pretty cool. So perhaps you can get them to come to your lab, come to your classroom. It's a great way to establish a relationship. Then if they're physically there, you've trapped them, right? They're a captive audience and you can advocate all over again. And then you've developed even more of a rapport with the office. They'll remember you. They did a site visit. So that's it. The 3 essential elements of any good advocacy pitch. Bottom line up front, who, why, what. It sounds like a cheerleading chant because I kind of designed it that way. So if you remember, nothing else, bottom line up front, who, why, what. Bottom line up front, who, why, what. So if you have that, you'll be ready to rock. Thanks for your time. This is where to reach me. Don't be a stranger. I love talking to students and I'm looking forward to any questions you guys might have for me. Thanks a lot.
That was great. I love the chant in the end. That'll definitely be stuck in my head. One question I had is, if you identify with a number of different who's, how do you prioritize which of those you want to represent when you're going in and advocating?
You want to tailor make it to the situation at hand, whichever one I think gives you the strongest pull. The thing that matter the most is, are you a constituent? That really matters. Are you a member, somehow part of a coalition that perhaps donates to this particular decision maker or has loudly and proudly supported them? So if you can show, like, I'm your people, that's really powerful. Are you a member of their caucus? In addition to, so for example, there's like a Black caucus or an LGBT caucus or a Hispanic caucus or a coastal caucus, in which members who are part of that caucus generally are going to be champions for that issue. And so to the extent that you can match who you are with what they care about, that's really helpful. And also comms directors spend a lot of time writing like the bio of members, you know, online. So go to their website and see what words they use to describe themselves and what they care about. If you can mirror that back to them, they're like, oh, you're speaking my language. We like the same things, right? And so you want to make it such that there's this like magnetic sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. So whatever you have in your ballpark to give you that, that's what you want to lead with.
Yeah, good way to build rapport in lots of different situations, but most importantly in advocacy.